Landon is a land surveyor that lives and works in the California Central Valley. He is licensed in California, Nevada. He's also a certified federal surveyor and a UAV pilot. Spoiler alert, CFEDS is on its way back. So March 14th, we're actually going to do a CFEDS update. Landon owns Redefined Horizons, a family-owned surveying business focused on small private land development projects and real estate transactions in Central California and in Western Nevada. He enjoys hiking, landscape photography, and computer programming. He lives with his wife and his foster son, Marty, and 3 dogs in Stockton, California. Landon's going to chat about kind of about these first month and a half almost is all pretty much business related, which I kind of like starting the year that way. So Landon today, and he's going to be back at the end of the month as well, but today is why standard business processes are critical to the success of a surveying business. So without further ado, I appreciate your time, Landon, and we'll turn it over to you.
All right, cool. Thanks guys for jumping in today and taking out some of your Monday to listen. I appreciate that. So I want to give you a couple disclaimers right here at the beginning. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some business stuff this month. And I always hate it when the speaker gets up at the beginning and it's like tells you how smart they are and how they got all this stuff figured out. So like that is not me. So I started this business 2 years ago with Danny. He's on the webinar today. Danny's one of my partners, and we started this business a couple years ago. And I'd been a project manager for I don't know 10 years maybe. So I've been running projects at small firms and large firms. You know, running a team of 10, at least a team of 10, most places I worked. And so I decided to start a business and. The first year we got our butt kicked, and part of that was probably COVID. So I started the business in February, like a month before COVID really started blocking stuff down in the US. But it's been a very humbling experience for me. So one of the things I learned is, being a good project manager doesn't necessarily make you a good business owner. So that's become readily apparent. I thought I was ready. I think I'm glad I waited till I was 40. I thought I was ready at 32, and I think we probably would have been bankrupt if I'd have started this company 10 years ago. So I'm glad that I waited till I was 40. There's just some life lessons, some wisdom that comes with that extra 10 years. That helps a little bit, but it's still been really hard. It's been a real slog. Just trying to find your niche in the marketplace and figuring out where you can compete and where you can't compete. And Trent can have me back. We could talk about this another time, but I've been really disappointed at the level of cheating in our industry. Just really is really tough. It's tough. It's tough to compete and follow the law. It's tough to compete and file records of survey. It's tough to compete and pay the proper wages and pay the drive time. It's just hard. It's hard. There's a lot of firms that just don't do it. So that's been a challenge for us. So the only reason I mention that is I'm gonna offer some suggestions today, but I want you guys to know that so business processes is something that we work really hard on, that we put a lot of work into, but it's something that we have so much room to improve on still. So I would just let you guys know, I don't know, I think maybe probably 50 to 70% of the work that we do is covered by a documented process at our shop. I don't know, Danny, do you think that's a fair number? Is that too high? What do you think? I told you I'd put Danny on the spot once or twice. He might be bashful.
Okay, you guys hear me now? Oh, yeah, no, that's a good number.
Okay, so I think probably 50 to 70% of what we do, we have a written process. So I'm going to show you guys an example. Okay, so that's good. I would like it to be closer to 90%, 95%. You're always going to kind of get the one, once or twice a year, you'll get an oddball project where you're doing something that you haven't ever done before, don't normally do. But, I think reasonably 90 to 90% of what we do at my shop could be covered by a documented process, right? And we do a lot of the same stuff. So, we're a small company. We've only got, we got about 14 people. So we're a small company. Our clients tend to be a little bit on the smaller side. So we do, I don't know, you could probably split it up. We do about 30%. about 1/3 Alta surveys, and we do about 1/3 minor subs, and then we do 1/3 I would call kind of specialty, either expert witness stuff for attorneys, or we do some. We brought on a partner that does some specializes in some UAV LiDAR stuff. So, but most of it's, we're doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? And that's true, I think, for a lot of different surveyors. So we've covered about 50%, 50 to 70% of our standard work with a written process. Now, here's the bad news. So that's the good news, right? Even though I would like it to be 90%. The bad news is we don't do a really good job of using those processes, even though they're written down. So that is a constant struggle. What happens is, I don't know if any of you guys have read the book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution. It's a business book. It's a good book. But they talk in there about the whirlwind, which is kind of the day-to-day junk that you got to get done. The people calling on the phone and screaming at you and the proposal you need to get out. And so one of the things that happens to us is we just get busy and we're trying to get stuff done. And then we're not using the process. We're just shooting from the hip. So we struggle with that. So one of the things that we instituted last year at the end of the year, just as part of 4DX, was just an effort to try and start tracking how many major tasks we complete in a week without the benefit of a standard process and what those tasks are. So we can just kind of assess, where we're at. And the goal there is, as people have to start tracking how much they do in a given week without a process, that we'll get better at using the processes. And I'm talking about, we're tracking it at the major task level, right? Like draft a record survey, resolve a boundary, complete an elevation certificate. So we're not drilling way down into subtasks, but just, for a major task that week, did we have a guideline? And if we had a guideline, did you follow it? So we're working on it, but I just wanted to let everybody know at the beginning, like, we struggle with this. And I tell, it's probably like timesheets. We struggle to get timesheets done on time. My folks will do good for a couple weeks or 2 or 3 weeks, and then they'll start slacking, and I gotta put my boot in their rear end. And then we do better for a couple weeks. Timesheets, I will lecture about that till I die, probably, right? So standard business processes is probably a similar thing. But I will tell you this: every time we get in a hurry and we fail to use a process that we have written down, I regret it, because we make a goof or we have a mistake. And I'm like, if we would have followed the process, we would have caught this, right? And so the longer I do this, the more I realize how important it is to start to regularly follow those processes. So I am going to beat that into my organization. Like, we are going to do it, or I'm going to die trying, because I recognize how important that is. So what I want to do, I'm going to do 2 things. I want to tell you why I think it's important, 2 or 3 reasons why I think it's important that you have processes. Okay. And then we're going to talk about what does a process look like. And I'm going to go ahead and show you. So there's 3 or 4 things I think should be in every standard business process for surveyors. And I'll show you, we've got some, I'll pull up, and then I've got some of these online. I'll show you that webpage where you can download them and you can, redline them, send them back, whatever, tweak them, use them as you see fit. So why is it important to have a standard business process? Okay. So I'm going to give you a couple reasons why it's important. I think the main reason it's important is just for quality control. Okay. So what we do is complicated. If you're like me, we do a ton of training, right? There's not a lot of experienced licensed surveyors, or even experienced surveyors that aren't licensed, running around, right? So if you're like my shop, we've got 14 people. We've got 3 guys that are super experienced, and then we have a lot of folks that haven't been doing this for very long. So we've got 2 guys that have been doing it between 5 to 10 years, and at the LSIT level, and then basically everybody else that works for me has 2 years or less of experience, right? And I think a lot of other surveyors are in that situation. So what does that mean? Part of what that means is you need really good processes that your people can follow, or they're going to dork stuff up, right? They're going to dork stuff up. So part of why the standard process is so important is just to make sure stuff doesn't get missed, right? And I tell my folks all the time, like, you come to work here, and you have to be awake and alert and paying attention, because you make a mistake and you could cost this company $20,000 or $50,000, right? Or $2 million. It can happen. Like, small mistakes have major consequences, right? So quality control is the main reason why I think this is important. But there's some other benefits to that. So that's the main reason we started to do it. was just to try and help with quality. But as we've implemented, we've realized that there's some other advantages. Okay. So the other big advantage, I think, is once you have some standard processes in place, it makes it way easier to train, right? So we're not here yet, but ideally, I get a new person shows up at my shop, field or office, either one, and like they get handed a binder, right? And it's like, all right, you're doing an elevation certificate. That's on page 20. That tells you how we do elevation certificates at RH. All right, you're resolving a boundary. That's on page 32, step by step. That's how we resolve a boundary. All right, you're doing a parcel map, a minor subdivision. All right, that's on page 45. That's how we do it here, right? And then I expect people to do it that way, to follow it that way, right? Unless some special circumstances apply. So it makes training way easier. And one of the things that some of the feedback that we've gotten from some of the new employees that we've hired the last 2 years is, man, it's what you guys have is great, but it'd be even greater if you guys had more. So even the new employees are like, this is so super helpful. Like when you have something that we can just get out and follow, it's super helpful. And I've been really proud of some of my new employees that we've had less than 2 years. They get those workflows out. So we've got a workflow that we use for static data processing when we're doing a control network. We do fast static on almost every job. And so we've got a workflow that we run through TBC, and like I got a 20-year-old kid that we're teaching to do that work, and like he got the workflow out, and he got his red marker out. He's writing questions and saying, I think this would be better if we did this step up here, and he told me, he said, you're going to be okay if I come back with some suggestions on how we can improve. I'm like, bro, absolutely. Like, I would love that feedback. Bring that back. We'll talk about it. We'll improve the process, right? So I've been very happy to see how my new employees have engaged with that when we have it available, and we'll use it and we'll interact with it and work to improve it. So that's fantastic. So it makes training a lot easier. The other thing I think it does besides the training is it gives you a more consistent work product. So, we're a fairly new company. One of the things that I've been working on that we're gonna work on in 2022 is just getting more consistent look and feel across our work products. I want one record of survey to look like another, and I want our record of survey to look like our parcel map. So we do better than a lot of companies. So we have a standard set of fonts. We have a standard set of logos. We have a color scheme that we use. We have a block library. So we're ahead of the game there, but even within that framework, I can still see a lot of variations across work products, depending on who's doing the work product. And so we don't want that. We want, if you get an RH survey, we don't want you to be able to tell who drafted it, right? We want an RH survey to look like an RH survey. So that's another advantage of having a standard process. Danny and I both work together at a large 500-person engineering firm, and like it was a wild, wild west, man. I mean, they had two title blocks for every person that worked at that company. Like you couldn't get a standard anything, right? All kinds of different logos, different fonts. It was crazy. I've never worked at a place like that before. So I don't want to be that way. And so standard processes help with that. Okay, so here's the last thing that we've learned, even just in the last couple of months. So we've started doing some sub work as a sub-consultant for some other surveying and engineering companies. And one of the things we've learned is when you're in a situation where you're a sub-consultant and your client doesn't have standard processes, it really sucks. It makes it really hard. And so one of the things that's happened to us a couple times is, we'll get some instructions on how to prepare a product for a client. Now, I'm not talking about, this is a client that has their own, their surveyor, an engineer, an architect. So we'll get some instructions on how they want their product put together. And then we follow those instructions and deliver a product, and they say, oh, this isn't what we wanted. Right. And so then you're in a situation there where like, now you're probably behind schedule, and somebody's going to write time off. Either I'm writing time off a bill, or they're paying for extra work, and nobody's happy. Right. And part of what we've realized even the last couple of months is, man, it's really hard for us to read somebody's mind. Right. So what we get is we get a client that just sends us the last of whatever they did. They think it's the last. Right. So, all right, here's the last topo we did. Right. But they don't have any written standards or processes. Like, well, that's a nightmare. right? To try and like read that and figure out, translate that to the current project, right? And then one of the clients we work for, he accidentally grabbed a template that was like 15 years old. But like, that's what we got. And that's what we use. And we sent it over to one of his other people to peer review. And they're like, where'd you get this title block? This is 15 years old. And we're like, we got it from you guys. Like, that's where we got it. What do you mean, where did we get it? We didn't get it from Amazon. We got it from you guys. It's your title block, right? So I think if you're gonna interact with outside organizations in that way, I think having some standard processes is helpful. So there's my 4 reasons: quality control, training, consistency in the look and feel of your work product, and just makes it easier to interact with other companies. If you get in a position where you need to supplement your team, or you're working to supplement somebody else's team. Okay, so that's why it's important. So there's a really cool book. I encourage you guys to read it. It's on audiobook too. It's called The Checklist Manifesto. It was written by a surgeon, and it's just about how even using a simple checklist can make a huge difference. So if you commute like me and you want a good audiobook, check that out. It's called The Checklist Manifesto. It's an excellent book. My last job, they called me the checklist Nazi because I had checklists for everything. So it's a good book. You read that book, you'll be a checklist Nazi too. So let me talk about what is, at RH at least, what is in a standard business process. Okay, so we have a few parts. Okay, so the main thing that makes up the process is what we call workflow. Okay, and it's graphical. Okay, so it's a graphical workflow. Okay, and then so we always have at least a workflow. Okay, and then usually we will also have some written guidelines that go with the workflow, right? And here's the other thing that I've learned too is if you write a Bible, people aren't going to use it, right? So we try and keep our written guidelines to 2 or 3 pages. Okay, so it's not an encyclopedia, just 2 or 3 pages. So there's a written set of guidelines, there's a graphical workflow. Okay, then we have a set of checklists, if it's appropriate, that go with the workflow. Okay, and then we have, if it's appropriate, we will also have a template. Okay, or 1 or more templates. Okay, so what I want to just do is show you guys an example of that. Okay, so just to review, we've got the workflow, the written guidelines, the checklist, and then if it's appropriate, a template or an example. Okay, so let me, I think Trent set me up to share my screen.
Yeah, you're good to go. And then I also shared, just for everybody, your website already with all of your documents.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I started sharing that already.
Okay, so here is,
and just real quick, one of them is one of your links is broke on the website.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw that first one isn't working. Now I lost Zoom, so hang on.
It should be at the top. So take it all the way to the top, and you should see a.
Yeah, I lost it. I don't know where it went.
We see your website now. Now we see your screen desktop.
Now you see my desktop. Yeah, I don't know where the stinking Zoom controls went. Zoom. Oh, there it goes. Nope, that's not it. All right. Well, when I'm done, Trent, I'll have you in sharing. Maybe I'll come back.
Okay. Yep. Nope.
All right. So I'm just going to take you into our guideline folder. So we've got some that we're working on, but these are finished. Okay. And then as a general rule, we set these up into field and office. And what we're trying to do at some point is get these in a binder with tabs. So there'll be an office binder, and then there will also be a field binder. Okay, so I'm going to just go in and give you, we'll look at a quick example of both. So under boundary surveys, I'm going to just show you this workflow for research, boundary research. Okay, so here's the written guidelines. So you can take a look at those. So like I said, they're usually only a couple pages, 2 or 3 pages. Okay, and they all follow the same standard format, right? What is it and why is it important? And we talk about, who's responsible for what. Okay, so in this case, the project surveyor is responsible for supervising the boundary research. Okay, but the survey tech usually performs the boundary research. Okay, we always talk about who's supposed to do the peer review. Okay, because everything should get a peer review. Okay, and then we just have kind of a narrative description of the steps in the workflow. Okay, and that's it. So this one's just 2 pages. Okay, so that is the written guidelines. Let's go look at, so here is the actual workflow. Okay, so this is our workflow for boundary research. Okay, and so basically every column here is a step. And then what we do is we have a box for every person, every role, right? With what you're supposed to do. Let me see if I can open that. I'm going to open that my PDF viewer so we can zoom around a little bit. So I won't take you guys through this whole workflow, but we'll just look at a part of it. So like, all right, so research setup is the first step. Project surveyor is supposed to identify the subject parcels and the limits of research. He prepares the boundary research request for the survey tech, and he sets up the boundary research log. Okay, the next thing we do is we go hit the tax assessor records, right? So the survey tech pulls the tax assessor maps, determines the preliminary list of untaxed parcels, if there are any, and the project surveyor reviews the research. Okay, and it carries on that way, step by step, what each person is supposed to do, right? So part of what we're trying to develop with this is also some accountability, right? So everybody should know what their job is, and we can hold them accountable for it. Right now, down at the bottom, we have two things here, right? So we got two boxes that either tell you, so one box tells you if there's a checklist that needs to be used for this step in the workflow, what is it? And then if you're supposed to produce something, there's supposed to be a work product when you're done, what comes out of it, right? So for the first step, the project surveyor is supposed to have a boundary research request that goes over to the survey tech in this next step, right? And then the survey tech, he's supposed to use this checklist, the boundary research checklist. Okay, so that's all along the bottom, right? So you could see on any given project, depending on what we got going on any given boundary survey, we should have a handful of checklists done by the time the boundary research is done. Okay, so let me just go show you guys what some of those checklists look like. Okay, so up here is the folder for checklists. Okay, so you can come in here. Here's the first checklist that's in the workflow, boundary research checklist. Okay, and these are usually a page. It might be 2 pages at the most. Okay, but job number, job name, who's doing the work, any special notes they have, and then they just check stuff off, right? Pulled the tax assessor maps, identified any untaxed parcels within the limits, pulled the vesting deeds for the subject parcel, pulled the vesting deed for the adjoining parcels, prepared a list of deed references, obtained the deed reference documents, ordered the title reports, all the way down, right? And then down here, we just have to split out if we, sometimes you have special research you got to do if you're up against a railroad or a levee or canal or a highway or freeway. If we're public lands, we need to get the township plat in the notes. And so, there's some special stuff to do there. So that's where all the checklists are. We can look at one more. Oh, so here's the research checklist for the filed survey maps. Okay, so same kind of thing, right? You note your research sources. Okay, and then you just have to, so what we're doing here is we're making sure you've done your map research appropriately, right? So you check the county map index. Okay, so some of our counties index their maps on the assessor's plats, but most of them don't. So we always check them both. We check the tax assessor map and we check the primary county map index. I always want to make sure they check for corner records. We're getting a lot of more corner records now than we used to, and that we've checked the maps for both the subject parcels and the adjoiner parcels, and then we have to review the maps and corner records to check for additional map references. Sometimes you'll get in something that gets misindexed or isn't included in the index, but it's on the map. So for every map you pull, we want you to go pull the reference maps that are referenced on that map. Okay, so that's just an example. So that's all in that folder. Okay, so if you go in here, here's your written guidelines, your workflow, your checklist. Then we have the templates in here. Okay, so we're supposed to go in and do a chain of survey on the subject parcel. Okay, there's some other templates in there. Okay, so that's an example at my shop of what a guideline is. So let me show you a field guideline, and then I'm going to stop for questions. Okay, so let's go into field, and let's just do. So I'm going to open up control survey guidelines. Okay, so here's our guidelines for control surveys. Okay, now why do I call them guidelines? Some people call them standards or rules. So I'm going to just explain. So the reason I call them guidelines is because I hire smart people with good judgment, and I don't want them to be so bound to the checklist that they can't use their brain. Okay, so that's why we call them guidelines. So I don't have a problem if people deviate from the guidelines as long as they have a good reason, right? So that's why we call them guidelines. I don't call them standards because in my shop, standards we use for what I call third-party specifications, like the Alta standard or Caltrans standards. So that's what we call standards. So in my shop, guidelines, that's what we call the written guidelines that go with the standard business process. Okay, so same kind of format you guys saw on the office side, right? What are they? Why is this important? Okay, this one has some definitions, right? So I'm defining what a primary control point is in my shop. That means something very specific to us. And secondary control points. Okay, and there's some things you can do with secondary control points that you can't do with primary. Okay, then we say, all right, what is the project surveyor responsible for? What's the party chief responsible for? What's the assistant surveyor responsible for? We don't have a field survey coordinator. We're not big enough yet, but that doesn't mean we won't in the future. What is that person responsible for? Okay, then a schedule. When does this stuff have to be done? Okay, what kind of field notes do I expect to get back when you're doing a control survey? What kind of stuff, do you need to check on the equipment before you go out to do a control survey? When you get there, you got to search for and recover the existing control. How do you set the new control? So we've got an 11-step process here, right? Plan ahead, consider point visibility, consider site access and security, figure out what type of monument you're going to set. How are you going to survey the control point monument once you get it set? Make sure you use the right point number. Let the project surveyor know what you did. If you're going to set site control, what do you have to do? So when we're doing a site development project, we want to make sure there's at least 4 points. Some of those have to be off-site. We're not allowed to use GNSS elevations for control. Take good notes. One primary control point should be selected as the site benchmark. Then there's certain things that we have to do for that point. Okay, so this is what I would hand a brand new party chief. When I say brand new, a party chief that comes to work for us. And say, I tell them, here you go. This is how you do control surveys at RH. It's your job to understand this spec, right? To understand this guideline. If we expect you to do it this way, unless you have a good reason to not do it, right? So that gets back to the training thing. So, all right, Trent, do you have a way to stop my screen share? Because I just lost my Zoom control. I don't know where it's at.
Yep, I'll get it. And you're good.
All right, now I see it. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how standard business processes work at my shop. Trent shared the link to the website where we actually have some of those online. I think all of our boundary processes in the office are online. I'm not sure yet if we have any there for like the actual work products, like the map, the record survey map, or the parcel map, but the actual work to resolve a boundary, that's online. And I think a bunch of the field stuff is online. I think we're probably a little farther ahead on the field side than we are on the office side, but there's information there on how we put together a field package. We have a general set of guidelines, that should be followed for every field survey. Then we have, guidelines for boundaries field surveys, guidelines for topo field surveys, guidelines for control field surveys. So we drill down a little bit and give them some specific guidelines. So there's stuff on there. You're welcome to use it. Give us your feedback. Let us know what works, what doesn't. We're just sharing that. Our goal is to help people improve the practice of land surveying. So that's our secret sauce, man. And we're putting it up on the website for you guys. And we hope it helps. I don't know how many places I've worked where it's like, how do you guys do a boundary survey? I don't know. Everybody does it different. Like, no, not at my shop. At my shop, we got a set of steps you're supposed to follow, right? Every time, unless you got a good reason not to. So I think that's super helpful. We've got a couple guys, LSITs, I suspect will probably get licensed this year. We might have 3. And so, those guys are super green and they need 5 to 10 years of experience before they get to tell me that they don't think they like my workflow. Right? For the first 5 years, they got to use the workflow, right? I want to see them check all those boxes on every checklist so that we don't make a mistake. And like I said before, it never fails, man. If we get in a hurry and we just skip the workflow or the checklist, we forget something, right? Something slips. And so it's not worth it. Like, take the time and do it. We're going to do better. We're going to be more disciplined about it. So I think the first step is just get something in writing. That's step 1. Then the second step is make yourself use it, right? So One thing I would add is, and I tell people this all the time, if it's not written down, it doesn't count, period. When it comes to guidelines and standards, if it's not written down, it doesn't count. It can't be in your head, LS. You can't expect your team to read your mind. That doesn't count. It's a horrible way to run a business. Don't do that. Right. So one of the things that, I mean, I don't know how many countless hours we've invested into this effort. It's a lot. But and we're going to invest a lot more, many more hours. Okay. But one of the things I tell my two partners is one of the most valuable things I can do as the senior land surveyor at RH is get the knowledge in my brain into a tangible format that my people can use. Right. Because I'm not going to be around forever. I hope I'm around for a long time still, but I'm not going to be around forever. Right. So one of the most valuable things that I can do with my time as a business owner is teach people the processes. You know, I have a bunch of processes that I follow in my brain that I've just learned through experience, right? Trial and error, screwing stuff up, right? I'm like, never going to do that again, right? So, and I'm learning that stuff all the time. I was out on a site last week setting some monuments, property corner monuments, and I told myself, you know what? So I went out to set some property corner monuments, and a couple of the corners, there was just a bunch of crap, right? Old wood piles, and people have been dumping their leaf litter over the fence. And I told myself, I said, you know what, from now on in my contract, I'm going to put in there a requirement that the client have the approximate corner locations cleared and grubbed before we come in to set corners, right? Because that was a nightmare. I'm thinking, why am I out here moving this wood pile, right? It's like, that's just like, oh, right? Why am I doing that? Okay, so from now on, like, I'm never going to be in that situation again. From now on, the landowner's moving the wood pile before I go to set my corners, right? So it's that kind of stuff that I am learning through experience that I need to make sure. I don't want my team to have to learn all the lessons I learned the hard way. I don't want them to learn it the hard way too, right? So part of what I'm doing is I'm trying to crystallize some of that experience that I've got into a set of guidelines, into a standard business process, right? So they can avoid some of the mistakes and suffering that I've been through, right? And it's one of the most important things I can do. And I've been on my other two partners, the two other guys I've got at a senior level, Danny and Brian, about the same thing. Like, they need to do that for their knowledge. So they both have knowledge in the areas that they specialize in that I'm not an expert in. And they have to do, I need them to do the same thing. They need to. So if we've got a guy, you know, he's an expert at UAV LiDAR. He loves that stuff. He lives for it. He's super good at it. He knows the hardware. He knows the software. I'm like, bro, you're not going to be around forever. You know, he's in his 50s, early 50s. I'm like, you're not going to be around forever, bro. Like, I need you to get some of that knowledge down on paper. I want a process. I want a mission planning process. I want a process for what we do for a flight. I want a post-processing process. I want a guideline. I want it written down. And then I want you to take that 22-year-old kid and I want you to teach him how to follow the process, right? That's part of your value to me, right? Like, because if something happens to you and I got a big UAV LiDAR job, we're hosed, right? So I need him to do that. So super, super important. I don't think most companies do a good job of getting that knowledge out of their senior people and into a process that junior folks can use. But I do think it's really important. So that's my speech, Trent.
There you go. I know George had your hand up. Did you still want to ask a question, George?
Sure.
Oh,
I'm just wondering, Landon, if you've taken as much trouble to provide your clients, especially your other engineering company clients, with the same degree of detail in your scope of services that you provide in your proposal, as to what you're going to do as you've done to try and get a unique and consistent work product from your own staff. Because even to the extent, going to the extent of providing them an example of what you're going to provide, like on a topo or something like that, might really benefit in the long run.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea, George. You know what? I haven't thought about that, but I think it's an excellent suggestion and something that I need to think more about. So let me tell you what I do a good job. I think we do a good job on, George, in that area, and then maybe where we could improve. So we do have a pretty good scope. I think we provide a fairly detailed and easy to use scope. And one of the things I know other companies do this, but one of the things we work really hard on, George, is to have we have a standard scope library that we use called a task library. So we have a standard scope, and what you do is you go in and you pull tasks out of the library as you need them. And we try and keep those tasks updated, and we add new tasks as we do new stuff. But everybody's supposed to go to that spot to pull tasks, standard tasks out of the task library to drop into their scope. So I think we do a good job of that. I think we deliver pretty consistent scopes and with some standard language. I think there is an opportunity there, and I didn't really think about it till you asked me the question, but to provide an example work product, I think that'd be great. That's an excellent idea. And it's funny that you asked me that, George, because I just had a client we gave a proposal to last week that asked me for a couple examples. And so we sent him a couple, but it wasn't because I thought about it, it's because he asked. So yeah, I need to think some more about that. And one of the things on my to-do list, George, I don't know if I'm going to get to it in 2022. I hope I do, is we want to put together just some standard kind of informational flyers, like just little one-page flyers. Like I need a one-page flyer on, why am I asking you to pay for a record survey, that I can just slip into the proposal for every boundary survey. And then one of the other things we run into too is when we're doing surveys for site development, ultimately at some point somebody's going to call us for a survey control, right? So I need a little one-page flyer that explains who will I give my survey control to and under what circumstances, and what needs to happen when I provide your civil engineer or your contractor with the control. So we can do a better job on that, George. And I appreciate you bringing the question. It's a good question. And it's an area I think that we could improve in for sure. So yeah, interesting question.
The other thing you mentioned is problems with timesheets. And I know I've kept a diary on a daily basis down to half hour, 15 minutes, sometimes, but usually half an hour on job by job basis. And I've made it a practice for the last 30 some plus years. I do my timesheet every night, because you know what? Even with that diary that I wrote yesterday, 2 days from now, I'm not going to have the same feeling and recollection of what I did 2 days ago. And you know what? In the end, the most important part of our project is getting paid. And if you don't have the information to send the client the bill, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you know what, George, since you brought up timesheets, I'll share this with the group. This is just something I've learned as a business owner. So when we started, we wanted, one of the reasons we started the company is we wanted to have a really good place for surveyors to work. And so with that goal in mind, we tried to be very careful about the amount of rules we piled on people. We wanted to try and be a little lighter on the rules, hire the right people and not have as many rules. That's still a goal of ours. But when I started, I told people they could do their timesheets once a week. And what I've learned, George, is that system does not work very well. So as we've grown as a business, added more people and had more time, more time under our belt, I've started to become a little more strict about getting daily timesheets done for the very reason that you mentioned. It's just hard for people. What I've learned is if people are trying to do their timesheet on Friday, they're probably guessing at what they did on Monday. And that's not a situation that I want to put myself or the clients in, right? So I have gotten a little more strict about timesheets.
Well, there's another benefit to that, because most of us do our timesheets on a computer nowadays.
Yeah.
And so as a project manager, if you've got a daily timesheet, you've got a really good handle on where you are budget wise on your project too.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah,
it's really important as well.
Yeah. And so one of the things too that I've learned, George, we're getting a little sidetracked. Hopefully Trent doesn't mind, but one of the things I've learned is, so one of the things that makes us different from a lot of the bigger companies that I've worked at is, so if you work at a big company, you do billing once a month. So, and I was a project manager at a 500 person company, once a month, somebody bring me a stack of paper that was 2 inches thick and I'd go through and do all my billing. And one of the things I've learned is, just as part of the cash flow management as a small company, is I can't wait. I can't do a job. A lot of jobs will get done in a week. That's one of the things that's kind of one of the market niches we fill is, I'm never the cheapest surveyor in town, but if you call me, like we got a gal that called today, and we'd give her a proposal a couple months ago, and she's like, can you get the survey done next week? And I was like, yes, ma'am, we can. So we'll go out and do a $25,000 survey, start to finish, in a week. And so what I've learned is, if let's just say that's the first week of the month that I do that, I can't wait 3 weeks to bill that work, right? That's what happens with the monthly billing cycle. So one of the things that we've learned to do is we bill weekly. Like, as projects are completed, they get billed that week they're completed. And the reason I bring this up to kind of dovetail into what George was saying is, when you have your people, that system doesn't work if people aren't doing their timesheets every day or every other day, right? It's just like I'm trying to do bills on Thursday or Friday, and I've got people that have left for the week with their timesheets not done, and I can't do the bill, right? So I think those are all good suggestions. I've gotten a little stricter on timesheets, George, for that very reason that you talk about, and it's still a struggle, but we've tightened that ship up a little bit, and my people are getting better. They're getting better at it. But if anybody has like secrets of timesheet compliance success, I would love to hear them.
I just threw, two things. One, you're leading a lot into, so Fred, next week's presenter's on right now, and he's probably chomping at the bit to chime in, because he's going to be presenting next week on the whole project management software that they run, right? And it's all online.
Yes, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, I knew you were, Fred. And so we here at my company, we run T-Sheets. So it's all online. It's a phone app, or it's a web browser, right? And so guys are clicking in and out of every job. And then Fred will tell you more next week, but like the project management software that we use with Fred, if your PM clicks completed and sent to client, it sends a notification to, in our instance now, I have a girl that does all of our billing. It'll send a notification to them and says, hey, marked complete, ready to invoice or whatever. So we're invoicing hourly at this point. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so Fred will definitely roll into that. Like you said, he's keeping notes on that kind of stuff. So we'll next week will be a really good topic, that building on what we're talking about right now. So
yeah, that's cool. Okay, so I'm not crazy, Trent. You don't do monthly billing either.
Oh, no. Like I said, literally hourly.
Yeah. Okay.
Other than traditional construction billing, right? Construction
Sure.
billing, which is only 18% of our business is construction, but those have specific, GC
Right.
has their deadlines or whatever. But
Yep.
otherwise, as soon as it's sent to the client, the invoice goes out. So, if Fred, just real quick, are you going to highlight any timekeeping stuff next week?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
That's
you go.
one of the biggest things that we're helping clients with,
Okay.
is that time entry all the way through to invoicing and payroll.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Perfect, Fred. So great. That was a great conversation there, Landon, because
There you go, Fred. I set you up.
that's right. He threw the softball right at you.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
That's awesome. I did. So one of the things I loved is, you've always been willing to share everything. And so I saved everything down, and I saved it into this week's Dropbox file that's associated with it. I sent that out there earlier as well. The link to the Dropbox, it'll be on the website later, but I saved down every one of your things. And so that's one of my things that I like, is being able to share that kind of stuff instead of reinventing the wheel, every single time. And so I love that. So Bernardo, you can use an app on your phone. He's talking about timekeeping, day and night, finishing job. Oh, okay. Never mind. What else we got? Job is billed when final survey is sent, but we are a 2-person firm. Yeah, true. And we do that sometimes too. But I'll tell you, like on an Alta, an Alta may sit on your desk or sit on the paralegal's desk for review for a couple of weeks or whatever. And so we send it out immediately, and then, start the payment process then. So, but anybody have more specific questions they want to talk to Landon about? Something that's working for you guys?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I'd love to hear from folks if,
Yeah.
Are folks using standard processes like this in their organization? Are they, or do they also see room for improvement? How do you guys handle it? I'm just curious what folks are doing.
We I'll tell you, like, so we don't have written guidelines, definitely, like what you have, but we've gone to creating kind of the TBC files, creating survey limits within those TBC files. So they have, a field folder with the research and that kind of stuff, but not so much specific guidelines every day, day in and day out, right? It's kind of just rolling with the punching and learning as we,
Yeah.
as they kind of mess up, and, always having that dialogue in the communication, come in and, hey, come see me at the end of the day. I got some questions on what you did here. So one of those type of things. And so it's almost learning by process, but
Yeah, sure. One of the, what I would tell people is, it can seem a little overwhelming. Maybe when you look at what I showed you, you might think, oh, I'd never have time to do that. But just, even if you just have a checklist, like, all right.
Yeah, I like the checklist. That's big.
When you get done with your boundary research, just have a 1-page checklist. Or when you get, one of the things that I worked on just I think it was just last month is, we do a lot of land title surveys, and man, there's a lot of things you can miss on a title survey if you're not careful. All the standard notes. I mean, even if you got a good template, not every note applies to every project. And we did an Alta. Danny worked on an Alta survey a few months ago, and it was on a water boundary. And this is not something we do every week. We're not doing a water boundary every week. This is it was an island in a navigable river, and there were just, we had some special notes that had to be on the survey for water boundaries. And so there's just, it's easy to just, you miss stuff sometimes. And like, you miss a note on an Alta, and it could cost you $1 million. So just even having a checklist, for stuff like that. The other thing I've realized is, we have all the, we have a checklist for this, and we have a checklist for that. And I just realized a few weeks ago, like, I need one checklist for just anything that is a map that comes out of my office. I don't care if it's a subdivision map, or if it's a record of survey, or if it's an exhibit or a plat. Like, there are 4 things that need to be on every map that comes out of my shop, right? North arrow, scale, there's a half a dozen things, logo, address, that need to be on every stinking map. That, like, if you do a map at my office and you don't have those 6 things, like, I'm going to chop off your pinky finger. Right. And so even something simple, just like that, like every time, I don't know what other folks are doing, but, in this labor market, we're hiring people that haven't surveyed before, and so you got to, they will forget to put on a north arrow. So you got to have that on a checklist, man.
Well, and even, the thing is, the most famous, right, non-plottable layers. And so you go and plot it out on a Mylar, and it's on your monitor.
Yeah.
There's your north arrow, there's your T-scale,
Yeah.
right? But,
or the monuments are on the non-plot layer or something, right? Yeah.
That's where your checklist comes into play, right? After you print the Mylar and kind of run through this thing. So yeah, we've gone to the recorder with missing north arrows, or
sure,
they got their own checklist that they'll hit you with. So somebody's got to have something. You guys are all quiet tonight. Go for it, Tyler.
I can jump in here. Landon, I certainly appreciate it. I'm glad I was sitting down for this, because it spoke to me less like a talk and more like a sermon. I mean, I've in my head, all this is possible, but I've never actually seen it done to the level of which you've managed to do it. I mean, we have some procedures for very small, isolated tasks, but not field procedures for a boundary survey. I mean, it's such a nebulous and large task with so many pieces and parts and changing factors. So I just wanted to appreciate going through this. And I wanted to ask, looking at your website here, you've shared, I mean, these tremendous resources for boundary survey. And I was just curious, what does it look like on the topo side? I mean, equally big of a task, maybe more so on the field side.
Yeah, no, probably not as much on the topo side. So that was a great question, Tyler.
I was thinking the same thing. That's a great question. Yeah,
no, it's a great question. So
tell me how to shoot a curb. Tell me how to shoot an ADA ramp, right?
So I will tell you a couple things. I will. So I think we have more work to do, Tyler, on topo than on the boundary side. And just the only reason why, Tyler, is we don't do a ton of topo. So we don't do topo work without a boundary almost ever. So anytime we're doing a topo, we're doing what I call a site development survey. It's a topo and a boundary. So Tyler, let me tell you what we do have, and then I want to show you an example of something. If Trent, if we got time, we got a little bit of time. Trent, I can do that.
Yeah, you got plenty of time. Yeah, we
Okay,
usually go
so
till about 5:30. So we're
okay.
Yeah.
So let me tell you what we do have, Tyler. So and this is no way, I'm not bragging in any way. And yet I am surprised when I've worked at different firms to find out that they don't have this. So let me tell you what we do have. So we do have standard point ranges. So, you know, controls in a standard point range, total station topos in a standard point range, you know, GPS controls in a, you know, in a standard point range. So we do have standard point ranges. We do have what we call feature codes. So we run, we run Trimble. So Trimble has what they call feature codes. Civil 3D calls them description keys. So it's a 3 to 4 letter code. So we have a standard set of description keys. We haven't shared that yet, but I would like to at some point. But so we do use standard point ranges and description keys and line work codes, and we do run field to finish. So we actually are set up to do that either in TBC or in Carlson Survey. So right now we're doing it in Carlson Survey, but we could also do it in TBC. We're not doing it in TBC right now, but we could. The library set up. So we are doing field to finish. Now I will tell you that we don't do we don't use line work like we should. So that's something that we're working on, is to do better. We're really good about standard point ranges and feature codes. We're not so great about line work. And I will tell you, the absolute worst offender on using the wrong codes and not doing line work is yours truly. And it's because I don't do it all the time. So when I occasionally end up out to do a topo, like I'm using codes from my first job. And so, but I need to do better on that. So we do that, Tyler. But I do think there is some room to do some better stuff on topo. So let me show you one thing we do have. Let me pull it up real quick. So I'm just going to show you what we put together for building surveys, because that was an area that we seem to have a lot of problems with. Not a lot of problems, but, and this wasn't at RH. This is at previous places I've worked where we'd send a crew out 3 times to get the information we needed on the building. Okay, and then I don't think this is perfect. Oh man, it says share 1 and 2, but I don't know what I did in my Zoom today.
You want me to share it? I can share it. You had your
See
building.
if you can share it.
Yeah.
Trent,
It
I
was
don't
the
know.
building survey diagram 1 or 2?
1.
Okay.
All right. Can you guys see my Windows Explorer?
No. I was gonna say I'll share your diagram from me. Share.
Oh, is it on the website already?
Yeah, you had it. On
Okay, cool.
That one.
Yeah. Okay. So this is something we put together, Tyler. So what we did is we broke building surveys into 4 categories: type 1, 2, 3, and 4, depending on the level of detail. So like type 1 is like drip line. That's it. And then like type 4 is like, we're working with an architect and they're going to remodel, you know, and they want to know where everything's at. And then I have a couple pictures like this where we just explained, all right, you know, what goes in, if you're doing a type 4, what goes into type 4, if you're going into type 2, what goes into type 2, right? And there's some written diagrams on this. And it's funny that you brought somebody, I think Trent brought up ADA ramps. It's funny that he mentioned that, because like I could totally see us at some point having a diagram like this for ADA ramps. We just haven't done enough of that work. Or in our area, we got a lot of levees, and we have a lot of irrigation canals like all over the place. Like, all right, you're going to go out and do a topo and we're on an irrigation canal. What do we need? You know, what do you shoot? You know, what's your standard cross section look like? So I could see doing that. We haven't put the time into it, Tyler, because we don't do enough of it, but I'm sure as hopefully, you know, the company will grow, we'll do more of that work, and then we'll get, you know, I wouldn't mind handing something like that to a new party chief. And here's what I would tell you. I know you mentioned, Tyler, a little bit about, you know, like every boundary survey is a little different, and that's true. And every topo survey is a little different. That's true. But you can kind of think of those guidelines as just as a baseline, right? Like, all right, at a minimum, this is what you got to do on a boundary survey here, right? At a minimum, this is what you got to do on a topo survey here. So I'll give you an example, Tyler. At my shop, we bought some nice 360 cameras You know, I don't know, they're 400 or 500 or $600, 360-degree cameras. And like our crews walk that site with the 360 camera before they go. And they take 360 photos of the whole site. And when they come back with their notes, they're supposed to trace the rough route that they took when they did the 360 photos. Because a lot of times my drafters aren't seeing the site, right? So they can pull up the 360 photos and they can pull up the notes, and the drafter can virtually walk that site. We do it for Altus too. So they can virtually walk that site with those, you know, and they'll find we missed a catch basin or a water valve, or there was some concrete feature on the side of the building that they weren't quite sure how to draw up. So we are doing more of that. And I can't remember if I have this on YouTube or not, Tyler, but I think I actually did a short, like 10-minute video for crew chiefs, like how do you take site photos on a topo, right? And I walk them through, I'm outside and I walk them through and I'm like, here's what you take, here's what I want you to take pictures of. And I just kind of walk them around a little commercial site. So we could do better on it, but I do think there is some room for that. Probably more on the field than in the office, because a lot of the office stuff is pretty automated. But like I need a workflow for how to run a surface and contours. What do our contours and contour labels look like? You know, do we do major and minor? Do we just do major? How do we show depression contours? All that kind of stuff. We don't have any of that done. It's on the to-do list to get done. So, but it's a good question. I had a client we were working for. We were doing some drafting for him, and I said we were trying to draft some topo and we had some questions. And so I just asked him, I said, hey, do you have any photos? Did your crew take any photos? And they're like, photos? What do you need photos for? I'm like, well, it'd be nice. We're drafting topo. We'd like to check it with some photos, And they're like, it's just a stadium. How hard can it be? I'm like, what do you need photos for? It's just a stadium. Like, yeah, it's a stadium. Like, we didn't get one photo. We didn't get one photo on that job, right? It was like, yeah. So once you get your drafters trained to have that kind of data, they're not like, they're going to demand it. It just makes it so much easier. But yeah, it's a good question. Good question.
Thank you. I wanted to add too that we recently added the 360 cameras, and we bought one as a test, and it was paid for itself in the very first job without question.
One trip. Yeah, pays for itself in one trip. Another thing that I think we don't do a ton of it, Tyler, but another area where I could see us maybe needing some better guidelines is perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. Is that yours, Trent?
No, Kent just shared this from his company, and I saved it down in the Dropbox file as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, rock on. Yeah, way to go. So the other thing I was thinking is like, when you send a crew out to do an elevation certificate, you really need some pictures of the structure so you can get the right building diagram, right? So just, having maybe you print out maybe when the crew goes out to do an elevation certificate, they take those 3 or 4 pages of the standard building diagrams with them into the field so they can help you pick the right building diagram. It's stuff like that we just haven't done it enough. Oh, somebody wants to know the model of the camera. It's called it's Insta360. And it's got a little GPS remote too, which I haven't figured out how to get it to work yet, but it'll sync up with your camera and geotag the camera. And then you can import them into Google Earth or whatever, and it'll plot the photos.
Stacy has a great question in the chat. As a business owner, do you think it is more cost effective to have your employee do field to finish, field work, drafting, deliverable, as opposed to having a surveyor for field and another for drafting?
Okay, good question. Yep. So I have a very strong opinion on that, but it could possibly be wrong. So I just want to let you know that, Stacy. But we have a very strong policy at my shop of making people cross-train between the field and office. And we struggle with that a little bit. We've got 2 field guys, what I call primary field guys. And we don't have a problem getting them in the office. They get a couple days, usually 1 to 2 days in the office every week, just because that's the way our schedule works. So those guys are getting well-rounded. In fact, we've got a Robman, he's 18 and he hates CAD. he likes being outside. You know, he likes to work with his hands and he likes being outside. And we just like basically put a gun to his head and told him, you're going to learn CAD. And he's learned CAD. He drafts corner records. He's hated every minute of it, but I've made him do it. And you know, he just told me like, why are you making me do this? I don't like it. Why do I have to do this? And I said, look, I said, you may end up being my party chief forever till you retire. And I said, that's great. I said, but you can't be a good party chief if you don't know a little bit about how we do things in the office. I said, so you're going to learn CAD. You're going to learn CAD because it'll make you a better party chief. And I said, when it's pouring rain for 2 weeks in December and you got to buy Pampers for your baby, like you're going to be able to come into the office and draft corner records because I'm making you learn how to do this. And he's done great. He does a great job on the corner record drafting. Now the other way. So we have, I don't know, I think we got 2 or 3 office techs that are primarily office techs, maybe four. And we do try and get them out in the field, but it's a struggle. It is a struggle to get them out in the field. You know, one of the challenges is when we're in the field, we're always hustling. We're really rocking and rolling. And so when you bring out an office cream puff into the field, that slows things down. And so we can't do that on every job. But we have a goal right now, Stacy. Our current goal is to get our office techs out in the field at least once a month. And if I could make it twice a month, I would. And so we got a little gal. She's 21. I think she's 21. She's one of our CAD techs. She's been drafting about 3 years for me. And I've been trying to get her out, man, and she doesn't want to go out. She's just been kind of kicking and screaming. And, you know, she likes it inside where it's warm and she's got coffee and the internet and a restroom and everything. And like, man, I drug her out in the cold fog last month for 1 day. I said, I'm gonna get you out. You're going to come out. She came out. She ran her first static sessions. So she took some static observations for me first time. And then that day we got her on the rod. She shot some curb shots for the first time ever. And like, she came back at the end of the day and she was exhausted, you know, and I said, hey, this is good. I'm glad you got to come and do this today. Cause like the next time you're drafting a topo and you're complaining because you didn't get, you know, everything you wanted from the crew, I want you to remember what it's like to go out there for a day and freeze your butt off, right? Like this is hard work. And that, you know, that's why the crews aren't always perfect. So we think that's really important. And we try and do that. We try and cross train when we can. It is somewhat less efficient. I know that, and we know that as business owners, we accept that. I tell you, one of the reasons we do it, besides that we think it's really important, is I think that's an advantage it gives us over the union firms, right? And so we're non-union, and it's okay if you're union. I'm not firing any shots or anything. But you know, one of the things I have to do as a business owner is figure out, you know, what's my company's value proposition. Why would you hire us and not the firm down the street, right? That's part of being a good business person. And so one of the, you know, in the union model, there's almost no crossover between field and office, right? And so now there's some advantages to that, which is your field guys get really good at what they do in the field. Okay, but the disadvantage, so there's a couple disadvantages of that model, right? One is even though you're more efficient when people are out in the field doing what they do, ultimately, you know, you can't bring those guys in when it's raining or the weather's bad or your field work's a little slow, right? So ultimately, that is an inefficiency, right? When those people aren't cross-trained. And the other thing that I think is really important is if you're a party chief and you've never ran a surface model in CAD, you don't shoot what you need to run a good surface model. And I don't care how long you've been in the field. Like until you've had to sit in the office and try and connect brake lines around a building or a parking lot, you're not going to do a good job of it, right? So, you know, my two office boys, I mean, my two field guys, Cameron and Angelo, like they're going to know how to run a good surface. Like they're going to learn that and they're going to beat their head on it and they're going to mess it up. And same thing with the raw data. You know, so we've got, these guys are young and they've always got a senior person with them, but they go out sometimes and dork stuff up. You know, they dork stuff up. I was just looking at a job last week. They didn't zero the backside properly, right? Now, guess what? We don't fix that crap for them. Like, all right, you dork this up. You're going to come in and sit down at TBC and you're going to fix your raw data. And every time you dork something up, you bust a rod height or you forget to zero the backside or you screw up your point number range, you're going to come in and fix it, right? And I tell you what happens to those guys when you make them clean their own messes is they make fewer messes, right? And now I've worked at both. I've worked at union firms and non-union firms. And I'll tell you the problem, one of the major problems I have with a field-only model, where you've only got one guy in the field all the time, is he don't have to clean his own messes. And I don't like that. I like people to clean their own messes. Now, you can, let's say, you go out and hire a party chief. If Danny was my party chief, I wouldn't have to worry about it. He'd do a good job and he'd clean his messes, right? But a lot of these younger guys, they'll leave their mess for the office people. We don't have that problem because if you screw something up in the field, you're the guy in the office the next day fixing it, almost always. So, and that's just kind of a policy we have. So, just to kind of tie this back into the topic, great question, Stacy. Thank you. But just to tie it back in, I think that's one of the reasons why it's so important to have standard procedures for both the field and the office, because we're trying to cross train, right? And so if you have those standard processes, that makes that cross training easier. I guess the final thing I'd add is, one of the reasons I think the profession is in the current shape it's in is because we went to this one-man field crew model and we've been running it way too long. And we've got a bunch of guys that are in their 40s or 50s and all they know how to do is field survey and they're not going to get licensed. And that's a problem. And I think we did it to ourselves. I think we shot ourselves in the foot there. Almost everybody that I have, that's working field and office being cross-trained at some point, maybe not everybody, but a big chunk, I would say 50 to 60% of those people, guys or gals, are going to end up on the track for licensure. And I don't think you get that with field-only folks. I'm curious what other people think. I mean, what do you guys think of that field-only model and how it plays into guys getting licensed or gals getting licensed? What do you guys think? I think it's horrible for putting people on a licensure track.
I agree with you completely, 100%. I started my own business this year, and the first thing I realized is the need to, number one, train, to have processes, because running a business, you can't be in the field all the time. You can't be drafting all the time. And I have, I will not get any bigger until I have processes down. So that's actually what I'm doing right now.
Awesome.
Is getting that together. And I do really believe into the field to finish. Yep. And I understand looking at it, how much more it's going to cost to train someone, but yet I really have always enjoyed field to finish. I never liked one or the other. And I believe that if I can provide that to my employees, they'll stick with me more. The training will pan out. I won't lose money in it. So I really want to work that way. And I'll be getting my processes down for the next year, then getting a little bit bigger. But
no, that's great, Stacey.
I'm going to try. I got to slow down though, because I could see where you could get really, really big with work and things, but I want to do it right.
No, that's awesome.
I want this business to be right. So
congratulations, Stacey, on starting your business. That's fantastic.
It's been amazing. So I was really busy.
Yeah.
7 or 8 months. So
yeah, that's good. So Stacey, don't do what I did. And Danny and I talked about this and we said we weren't going to do it. And then I did it anyways, because I didn't listen to Danny. But we grew too big before we had the processes in place. And
that's what
just trying to keep up with client demand. And I should have told people no, and I didn't. And I regretted it. So yeah, you're on the right track. And that, that doesn't mean your standards have to be perfect, but if you can cover 70% of what you do with some workflows, it'll make a huge difference. So you're on the right. You're smarter than I am. That's awesome.
That's what I'm doing. Well, because I spent most of my weekends, changing this line type, doing this block, remembering this block, and I need a template because I want my as-built and everything to look the same. It's unprofessional to have an as-built look different for every, right?
Absolutely.
For the same client, and you give them a different looking survey. It's unprofessional. So I spent a lot of weekends doing that, and I don't want to do that this summer.
Yeah. So. You know what? I don't think it's on the website, Trent, but if anybody wants the Word docs or the SVG files for those guidelines so they can just edit them. I'm happy to provide those. I don't think I put them online. I think they're
No,
PDFs.
yeah, they're all PDFs. If you want to share them, I'll throw them in the Dropbox for everybody.
Okay, I'll try and do that. Yeah, I'll try and remember to do that tomorrow. Trent, I'll zip those up and send them to you so you guys can have the Word docs.
Love it. There was a couple of questions real quick, and I know Dave took his down real quick, but Rob had yours up first, so go for it, Rob.
Yeah, one of the things that Robert Perez mentioned to me on the chat was Caltrans has survey manual standards for a lot of procedures. It's a standards manual. It's not a procedures manual. So that's a different thing. Achieve the standards as a licensed professional, because Caltrans party chiefs in that classification are licensed land surveyors. And also Caltrans has all the feature tables already populated. So if you're in a California workspace and you adopt those, it may be advantageous to you in the future when you want to do contract or subcontract work on Caltrans projects. But what I wanted to say was I'm right there with Tyler, and we'll start calling Mr. Blake Father Landon, because I sat down, I kneeled down, I stood up, I sat back down. I'm 3 or 4 times. I'm ready for a cracker and a little glass of wine.
You know, I will say, I don't always have tons of love to share for Caltrans, but I will say this. I'm just picking on Rob. I will say this. I don't think there's another organization in the United States that has the quality of survey standards that Caltrans does. So I have a printed copy of their survey manual in my office, and I refer to it. That organization has done a ton of work to spell out, you know, their standards for right-of-way surveys are second to none in the world, in my opinion. I mean, they're excellent. So actually, I know this is being recorded. We might have to edit this out, Trent, because I don't know if I want to admit it publicly, but the Caltrans manual was the inspiration for a lot of the guidelines I worked on, actually. So, because the first 10 years of my career, I did a ton of Caltrans work. And then, so I was used to having that kind of framework around me. And then when I went out into the private sector and started doing more land development work, I was like, this is a friggin' free for all, man. And so, yeah, so that the Caltrans, specifically the right-of-way, chapters on the right-of-way, you know, how they do it, what's in a land net, what gets delivered for a land net, is part of what inspired me to, you know, I was trying to get that same kind of framework for the other types of work I did. And I don't do Caltrans work anymore. But yeah, I mean, just all their standards, their GPS standards, their right-of-way standards, like world-class, man. I think there's nobody else that they put a ton of work into them, and they're excellent. They are excellent standards.
Well,
Yeah, and also CAD standards. There's a full-on CAD manual of, you know, what goes on what layer and what line type and level and color and everything else too.
Yep, that's cool. And I haven't looked at that, Rob, but it definitely that is something that I need to check out. Yeah, they're a great source of inspiration for sure. They make my stuff look like you know, like napkin sketches.
David, did you still want to ask a question? You good? Yeah.
Yeah, mainly I just want to say kudos to Landon for putting this out there.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work. We've got a few checklists and workflows put together, but nothing to this extent. And it's just, you know, all the years of surveying and saying, yeah, we got to do that. Yeah, we got to do that. You know, that's amazing what you've got. And I am going to steal some of it.
Cool. And you know what? I feel so guilty. I just feel like a huge hypocrite because like we got to do so much better. So don't make you feel bad. What I feel good about is that we have some stuff written down. What we need to do way better on is actually using it. I don't know, Danny, you still there? You got anything to add?
No, I think you pretty well covered it. It was
All
a really great presentation, sharing all the stuff that we worked on.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So we struggle, man. It's a struggle. It's a struggle to do it. But we're getting better. I think we're getting better about it, and I think we're going to continue to get better. So, and that's good for you guys, because as we continue to develop stuff, we'll push it up on the web. I'm looking forward to working with my other partner, Brian. I think we're going to have some UAV stuff up online soon, just like standards for, on a typical job. How many targets do you need to cover a given area? What's the maximum distance between targets? What kind of configuration do you need? How many ground truth points do you need for a given area? What's a suitable ground truth point? What isn't? So him and I and Danny have had some conversations about that, but we don't have anything written down yet. But so we're excited about that. We'll get that online. I'll make sure I let Trent know about it, and you guys can it's just going to be stuff based on our experience.
I would Landon, on your drone stuff, I would try to work together with Jim Kroom out of Arizona. I mean, he's
okay.
He's got a lot of different books, and I can throw those in all of them are on Amazon as well. But him and a couple of the other boys have been doing a lot of
okay, yeah, we'll check that out.
Yep.
Yeah, and I know Brian said ASPRS has some stuff, but a lot of it's still focused on fixed wing.
Yeah,
larger fixed wing stuff. But yeah, I'll chat with Jim. I bet I can track his email down. I actually bought it. Is one of the things that we're finding we have to do is because we're just hiring. We're hiring younger kids that are just, they're baristas, or we got a janitor working for us. We got a couple baristas working for us. And so they need some of that.
Not anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. They need some of that basic survey math. So I bought Jim's book on survey math.
Yep. He's got, I don't know how many he's got. He's got, it looks like 37 now, but they're all short books. You guys.
Yeah, they're cool little books. But
Yeah.
where else do you go to get a little book that shows you like how to work with azimuths and bearings and stuff? No, it was perfect.
Yep. And so he's done the same for the workflow on the aerial sides. And
okay. Yeah. No, we'll check it out. Yeah, for sure.
I sent the link in there. So, does anybody have any, Pat, I will, let me grab it one more time. I'll grab the link for the Dropbox and you can grab it. And, if anybody has the topo workflows and procedures and checklists they want to kind of throw our way, you can either email them to me or let me know, and we can kind of get those in there too. Watch. Oh yeah, I threw your YouTube channel in there, but he's also got on the website as well. Landon's got a ton of stuff on the YouTube channel that he posts all the time. And then let me throw this in the Pat. Here's the link to the Dropbox, and it's actually for the Dropbox that goes all the way back to week 1. So it's got tons of documents. Every document associated with each week is in there. So
that's awesome.
And then topo stuff, if anybody willing to share that stuff and get it out to everybody, that'd be fantastic as well. So anything, like you say, so that people don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time, and just kind of elevate the profession is the best part. So Jen is a faithful, and she's always on here, but she's going to school, but she heard people struggle to get back in the field once they're on the office track. And so that's definitely true. And I think, like Landon said, I think that business model is probably going to be changing over the years to come. Hopefully, that's one of the things that we try to push here as well, is kind of that field office, or at least the cross training for sure, because it's just makes you a better field surveyor when you know how to draft the stuff. So
yeah, no, and Jen, I think you're right. I didn't get to spend enough time in the field, because once people realized I knew how to run a computer, like I was doomed.
Yep.
So that does happen, and I don't have a good answer for it. Other than, when you graduate, Jen, what you want to, part of the conversation you want to have with prospective employers is kind of what kind of mix are you going to get? You got to be careful, especially for a young surveyor. You want to be careful you don't get pigeonholed. I got a little bit pigeonholes. I didn't get enough time in the field. I got that field time later in life, but I didn't get it when I needed it. And so I'm just going to put a plug in here for small companies. I think your opportunity for cross training is probably better at a small company. I'm not saying you can't get pigeonholed at a small company, but chances are if you go to work for a 10 or 20 person company, you're going to be doing a bunch of stuff you didn't plan on, like IT and janitorial and a bunch of other stuff. You go to work for a 500 person company, there's a chance they're going to plug you in a hole and you're going to do mostly the same stuff. So yeah, that's just something for you to keep in mind when you're looking for that first job.
Exactly. I threw in LinkedIn. There you go. Good job, Jen. I threw in LinkedIn in the chat Jim Croom's LinkedIn account. So
Oh, cool.
he,
All right.
most of everything either between the books or follow his LinkedIn page. That's where he's been putting a lot of that information that he does. So he's a good one to follow. So anybody else got anything they want to add? Want to throw in? Nothing?
Just thanks as always, Landon. Appreciate your efforts.
Of course. Yeah, Landon's back at the end of the month. That one's what are we doing there? How to create a better RFP, right? So work on.
Yeah. No, I was thinking, that was a topic mainly geared for public agency folks, but I don't know, if nothing else, it'll teach some of us guys on the private side how to identify a crappy RFP coming from public agency.
Yeah. Love it.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Have a good week, everybody. Bye, guys.